Today's presentation is called Designing Learning Spaces that Support Student Wellness, which will address the intersection between student mental health and educational architecture. Our speakers are Artemis Ettsen and Robert Sehm, both with Wold Architects and Engineers. And without further ado, I'd like to turn the time over to Artemis and Robert. Artemis, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. All right. Good morning or afternoon, rather. Thank you for joining us all today. So the question is, why are we talking about holistic wellness or holistic design and wellness? For the past decade or more, mental health and wellness has been a part of the dialogue for K-12 education. And the global pandemic re-emphasized that need for additional systems and strategies to support students. A CDE study in 2022 reported that more than a third of high school students reported that they experienced poor mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic, and 44% reported that they persistently felt sad or hopeless during that year. As a result of the pandemic, there has been an increased focus and investment on student mental health and wellness. The U.S. Department of Education provides significant funding opportunities through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. And nationwide, there has been a development of wellness centers and formalized curriculum and professional development for teachers in school districts. So my name is Artemis Ettsen. I am an K-12 educational planner at Wold Architects and Engineers. So much of our content today is going to be K-12 focused.
And good afternoon. My name is Robert Sehm, and I'm also an architect at Wold that focuses on K-12 education as well.
All right. So holistic wellness in educational spaces. We're excited to share with you some space design strategies that can support student and staff and parent, general building occupant, school building occupant, healthy behaviors that support mental health and cognitive development to promote holistic wellness in those educational settings. According to the Harvard School of Public Health, students spend more than 15,000 hours in school by graduation. And this is second only to the time that they spend within their own homes. So this really emphasizes the importance of building environments that support well-being and increase a sense of belonging, and that makes them feel valued. All right, so the topics that we'll be covering today, focusing on wellness, are an access to natural light and biophilic design, importance of communities, belonging, wellness-focused wayfinding elements, student choice and voice in learning environments, the importance of flexible learning environments and how that contributes to student wellness, dedicated areas for self-regulation, and creating safe spaces and schools. We'll be illustrating all of those strategies through two case studies. The first is Riverview Pre-K 8 school located in Johnstown, Colorado, and part of Thompson School District. It is a 1,100 student capacity building, and construction on that building was completed in 2021. And North Star Elementary School located in White Bear Lake, Minnesota, in the White Bear Lake School District. It is a 600 plus student capacity building and was completed in 2022. All right, so access to natural light and biophilia is our first wellness strategy. Biophilia is a theory that humans have an innate and genetically determined affinity to the natural world. And this theory really has been backed by numerous studies showing the benefits of natural light and biophilic design, including an increased attendance rates being a real challenge for schools right now, improved focus for students, and decrease in aggressive behavior and depression. It has been shown that children who grew up with greener surroundings have up to 55% less chance of developing mental disorders later in their lives. and students who have access to natural light within their learning spaces improve test scores by up to 20%. Biophilic design strategies can include access to views of natural elements from inside the building and easy access to the exterior, to nature itself, accessing those natural play spaces. Riverview Pre-K-8, all of the classrooms were required to have access to natural light and views to the exterior. All of the student learning spaces are kind of centered around 2 courtyards. That's how the building is organized, is around two student learning courtyards. Each one of these student grade pods has their own learning patio, which connects to an interior flex area. So it's an extension of their learning space, connects to the exterior. And then each of those learning patios extend out to grass gathering spaces and outdoor classrooms with an emphasis on plantings and greenery. Exposure to natural light has also been correlated with increased physical activity. It's always important to Thompson School District that connection from their learning environments on the exterior and a space for running and playing occur directly outside of that classroom area. Another biophilic design strategy are images of natural elements within building design. And so inside in common areas are a series of graphics that show, this is located on the Front Range, right, of Colorado. So reflect the atmosphere and the environment that is on. You can see this is within the cafeteria under a learning stair, kind of a gathering space with green imagery at that flexible gathering area. All right. The second strategy we're going to cover is the importance of building in communities. People who feel more connected to others have lower levels of anxiety and depression. And when students and staff experience a sense of belonging, they feel comfortable and safe and happy, benefiting both the school culture and student behavior. In school design, it is important to establish spaces that feel safe and comfortable, supporting meaningful gathering spaces and spaces that inspire and encourage human connection. Riverview Pre-K-8, again, as I said, is a 1,100 student school. It is a very large school. And Thompson School District was fairly concerned about the school wanting to feel like a neighborhood school while not being so, accommodating a huge population. And so one of the strategies that we employed is creating gathering spaces that accommodated the different levels of community that were within this school. So at the center of the school is the cafeteria with a learning stair and stage that accommodated both eating functions, but also presentation and gathering functions. And this is a space that could accommodate the entire population of the school from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade. But then there was a second level of gathering for the lower and the upper grade. So this is a 2-story school, as you can see from this floor plan. And we provided 2 gathering spaces where the lower level grades and the upper level grades could come together and gather, have that community space for that grade. These spaces were full of furniture that was bright and comfortable, that kids would find fun and engaging and would want to gather and stay. And then that last level of community was at the grade level. So every single grade level, all 4 classrooms are centered around a flexible learning area. They called them the living room spaces for their grade, and all grades had a space that accommodated the full grade, and all grades could gather at one time and really make that space their own. All right. Wayfinding can also be a strategy for wellness design. First and foremost, it helps students feel safe in the building. They understand how to navigate and understand where they are within the building due to wayfinding elements. And that can include signage, it can include identifying imagery, etc. In Riverview Pre-K-8, each classroom wing was identified specifically with, in this case, their logo was a falcon, and so they had different rafters that were identified at each one of their wings, but this became provide a sense of place and unique identity for each one of these, for each grade wing through those different graphics. It also was a way to pique curiosity and learning for students. The owl wing that you can see in the upper left-hand corner has an image of an outstretched owl, and students are meant to come up to it and measure their wing spread. The main corridor of Riverview Pre-K-8 is a reflection of the mountains that it faces. And so as students walk down the main corridor, they have access to the mountains that they see as they approach the school. It also locates, you can understand where you are within the main corridor, which direction you are going, just due to where along the path and which mountain you are at. If you're going towards the upper levels or if you're going down to pre-K, for example. And then again, at the center of the school on the learning stair, which reads as a beautiful graphic, but also is a topographical map of the area that locates the school itself. All right, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Artemis. Before we move on to our second case study, I'd like to discuss a couple topics, student agency and flexible furniture and the importance that they play in learning environments. First, what is student agency? Simply put, student agency gives students voice and most often choice in how they learn. As you can see in the graphic there on the right, all learners have different superpowers. So giving them voice and choice allows students to help design and help create their own future. Some other well-being benefits from student agency include building confidence with learners, helps promote a culture that respects diverse people, ideas, and skills, creates safe, nurturing, and inspiring experiences, and it also helps engage staff and students and helps them be committed to success. You'll see here in this next graphic, kind of breaks down student agency and highlights how that can be implemented to help promote well-being. We'll just start in the upper left-hand corner there and then go clockwise. So you've got choice, again, allowing students to pick from options that have been created for them. Then you move over and have contribution. Students are encouraged to give their ideas and ultimately see how their contributions and opinions can affect the options and choices. And then again, co-design, engaging in a collaborative space design that's based on their learning activities and their needs. So offering, this level of choice and this level of collaboration engagement helps students feel like they belong to a community and that their voice matters. Next, we'll move on to flexible learning environments, and we'll start with flexible furniture. And how that can play a role in promoting student wellness. So much like student agency, providing students with voice and choice when it comes to furniture allows for flexibility and adaptability to help meet the needs of all learners. So as you'll see in the next couple of slides, furniture can be used to support varied size groups and provide the appropriate amount of semi-private or even private spaces. This allows students the opportunity to create their own individual space or spaces that are comfortable and that they feel safe in. Some things to consider when making furniture selections includes the furniture should be easily movable and adjustable whenever possible. So that can support all instructional activities and serve as multifunction pieces. It's important to consider storing and stacking, especially when we get into the flexible classrooms. They can be arranged in a lot of different ways. So it's important to consider that. Flexible storage sizes as well should be considered based on the differing classroom needs. And then also you should tie your furniture color selections and material selection should help coordinate, when be collaborated with the building design, help stimulate the young learners. So we'll move into our second case study. As Artemis said earlier, this is North Star Elementary School. It's a new school that opened in the fall of 2022 in White Bear Lake Area School District. The district has a little over 8,500 students currently, but with a growing and increasing enrollment, there was a need for a new elementary school. And so just to highlight real quick on these two floors, it's a 2-level school. Just to highlight on the floor plans here, there is a central learning commons, which is sort of the heart of the building. And then surrounding that on both levels are learning commons, which we'll discuss next. So here you'll see a floor plan axon of the learning studio. And so this is a flexible and adaptable space. The studios primarily consist of a collaborative flex space in the center that is surrounded by rooms, again, that are highly adaptable. You can see there's a variety of different configurations available, rooms that can be opened up completely to that flex area and or open up to another adjacent room. There are some rooms that are also more private or what you would maybe call similar to a traditional classroom, again, providing that variety for all learning styles. There's also a variety of breakout rooms and extended learning areas that are provided. All this goes to show, that this flexibility allows for the support of all the different learning styles, and it also encourages collaboration not only within staff but also the students. Some of the specific criteria that was developed for North Star that helps aid in student wellness includes. It was important to the district and to North Star that instruction is geared toward individual student needs. Again, their flexibility to accommodate those individuals. Individual differences and similarities will be respected. Children will develop skills to become lifelong learners, and they will become a member of a multi-age family studio. Again, fostering this sense of community and belonging. Each child will be embraced by a team of caring professionals, and maybe most importantly, that North Star will be a safe place and comfortable place to learn. Next, we'll look at the learning commons, again, sort of the heart of the building. There's a photo there and then a floor plan axon as well. You'll see, again, there's a wide variety of spaces and amenities for students and staff, small group rooms, workrooms, an outdoor learning area, which ties into a lot of things that Artemis had already covered, and again, a variety of flexible furniture. Common spaces like these help promote ownership by the entire school community. And specifically for elementary schools, there should be a focus on creating commons that are well-balanced in a harmonious environment. It's also important to encourage play and interaction as well as quiet individual spaces. Again, common theme a lot of variety, a lot of flexibility in the types of spaces and the types of furniture. This common space is open and it's bright, and it includes interesting materials and stimulating colors and shapes as well. So here we have a photo inside of the Learning Commons here that helps, again, illustrate the adaptability and variety of learning environments that can be achieved. Shared spaces like this allow students the opportunity to demonstrate, mutual respect, and again, build community and build that sense of well-being. When students are comfortable and feel like they belong, there's obviously a positive impact to their well-being. So you can see here highlighted in this photo, there's opportunities for pairs, for table groups, small groups, private, more individual spaces there in the back, and then larger discussion group areas. Next, we'll move on to the flex space that's in the learning studios. Again, common themes here. Individual areas that allow students the opportunity to potentially escape larger spaces that sometimes can often be intimidating and overwhelming. Again, flexible furniture and flexible learning environments have a positive impact on students' well-being. They can find places where they feel comfortable, cozy, safe, secure. They feel happy there. They know that those spaces are available to them if needed, and that provides them a certain assurance. And again, here highlighted, we got small group areas, room for some pairs, a conference room that can be private as well, and then tabled groups, and again, individual spaces in the back right there. Next, we'll move on to the importance of self-regulation. It's a very important concept in space and school design. Here are some photos of a calming room, just for an example. But stress management and self-care is obviously a critical component to students' well-being. So some design strategies available for creating calming and these emotion managing areas include spaces where views are limited, sort of private. Again, soft, flexible furniture, including sensory items like soft lighting or lighting that can change colors. Acoustical separation and limiting distractions is also important. And then you can also include tactile tools, things for them to interact with, or even tranquil music. Next, we'll move into some safety considerations. It's obviously important to create safe spaces within schools. It's also important to create a welcoming environment while maintaining that safety and security. So it's important for all designers to find that right balance for the client or the district or the community or whoever you're designing for. That could vary depending on where you're at. So again, having that stakeholder input, finding out that right balance for making a welcoming environment while also maintaining a safe and secure environment is important. So here's just an example of a secure main office at North Star Elementary that is also accessed through a secure vestibule. Then we'll move inside the building here, and we're looking back now at the secure main entrance and the secure vestibule. It's important when considering safety and security that you have large corridors, larger gathering areas, spaces for easier movement and flow. This helps with safety and security and helps students feel safe. It's important that there's spaces where they can go where it's not overwhelming or congested. And so again, having these even larger stairwells, larger corridors, larger gathering areas all help accommodate that. Another side of the safety considerations is privacy. And so you'll see here as an example of a privacy toilet room area at North Star. So these are individual private toilet rooms that have a common wash, fountain, alcove area. So this layout here allows for a certain level of supervision for staff that helps promote that safety and security. And it also helps students feel safe because they know that they can be seen, and then they can go into a private toilet room for whatever the appropriate space might be for their personal situation or whatever they're dealing with. And then lastly, I'd like to hit on some trends in wellness that we see right now for the upcoming future. There's going to be an ongoing dedication to building and developing a culture that is grounded in trust and inclusivity. And it's got to be supported by all the stakeholders. That means staff, students, community, et cetera. These inclusive structures, systems, and traditions can deliver the best education for every student to learn without any restraints. Again, it's important to have students lead their learning, which ties back to the student agency that we discussed earlier. Educators also need to be empowered facilitators. They need to be flexible, collaborative coaches, and again, promote student agency. And then staff will lead their learning. So exposure to a robust variety of these learning opportunities and experiences and implementation of dedicated social and emotional spaces and counseling will also be seen in the future.
All right, so that brings us to implementation. How do we bring holistic wellness spaces and wellness strategies into fruition? And the first step is really understanding, where do you stand? What efforts are your school community and students currently experiencing, and what is being implemented? Finding an alignment within your student and teaching community is very important. We've talked about the importance of getting stakeholder engagement a few times during this discussion. And so prior to implementing solutions, it's important to understand and come to consensus with those people who are going to be within the building, so that everyone can kind of work as one towards implementing those goals. And then, of course, the all popular professional development for staff can also be employed. So encouraging student well-being, how can we do it? We talked a little bit about analyzing existing systems, but then also understanding what hurdles do students potentially face in their mental health and well-being within their existing space. And so identifying what those hurdles are so that that can be implemented, so that can actually be engaged and be part of the solution. And then making sure that the school community thinks that there is that these implementation of strategies are worthwhile aspirations for the district. Coming to those common goals is an important step. So we've identified some small changes that could be implemented within existing spaces, but have some fairly large results in student well-being. Large investments are not necessary to implement some of these strategies. So prototyping furniture and or spaces, investing in small amounts of furniture that can change the use of a space is one way of implementing some student choice and voice within their spaces. Also implementing a change of culture. So maybe you don't have the funds to buy some furniture, but providing a variety of spaces within the existing resources that you have so that students can engage independently with those separate types of spaces, similar to what Robert had been showing, some spaces for individual work, focus work versus group work versus social space, and then giving students the agency to actually engage within those spaces of their own volition, encouraging student ownership of those spaces and how they can flexibly change and or utilize it to improve their own educational setting. And then, of course, graphics or imagery are fairly easy to implement, fairly within an existing atmosphere to provide that wayfinding and or provide biophilic design imagery. So that brings us to our conclusion. So by implementing holistic wellness into school culture and environmental design, we can create nurturing spaces that foster a sense of belonging and support physiological wellness and mental health.
And it is time for the Q&A portion of our event. For our listeners, there's still plenty of time to submit a question using the Ask a Question window to the left. And let's take a look at what we got. All right, our first question is, how can districts ensure that everyone, including students and teachers, has a say in the spaces being developed?
I can start this one off at least. We've talked a lot about, or we mentioned a few times at least within the presentation, the importance of getting stakeholder engagement. Every design project that we take on, we start with a what we call a core planning group, and that is a selection of individuals who have a stake in the design at hand. So oftentimes that is a collection of teachers, parents, community members, staff members, administration, as well as students. We like to have the student voice within there as well. And having that group come together to identify and come to consensus on a set of needs and priorities that should take place within the building or within the design. And so Robert, for example, shared some of the wellness-focused design principles that North Star Core Planning Group had put together as a focus for wellness within that design.
And then those, just to add to that, Artemis, a lot of those criteria and those statements are then just tracked throughout the design of the rest of the project. Just something to always go back to make sure, from our end, that we're hitting our marks and we're meeting all of the criteria and the important items that were highlighted as part of the user participation process.
Okay. And then how can we make sure that flexible spaces are getting as much use as possible?
Yeah, so unused space often is not having unused space is often a criteria, and maximizing flexibility within the spaces that are provided. Oftentimes that can be professional development with staff to help them integrate flexible learning areas within their day-to-day curriculum. But also it can be, there's some self-teaching that can happen. We can bring clients out on tours often so that they can learn from their colleagues and people who are implementing strategies on efficiently using flexible learning areas within their curriculum, so that they can bring that knowledge and the benefits of those flexible areas into their own learning spaces.
And that's a great opportunity for us as designers to also get feedback from the staff and the users of the building. Lessons learned, our spaces being used the way that we anticipated. What would we do different? It can be a great learning experience for us as well.
Absolutely. I would say a very concrete answer to that question, though, is what we have learned is that teachers feel uncomfortable sending students out into spaces that they cannot supervise. And so transparency from the classroom, where the teacher typically is located, into those flexible learning areas is key to having flexible learning areas be utilized.
Okay. And then where have you found are the best places within a school to locate a calming room so that students have access to it, but it also allows for safety and security?
Well, for example, in the North Star plans that we looked at, there were several locations of calming rooms. You obviously have some dedicated calming rooms in your centralized special education area, but there was also a calming room off of that learning commons And then each individual learning studio also had the calming rooms that were all located off of the flex or collaborative space. So there was some ability for passive supervision and making sure that students feel safe.
Yeah. You probably have noticed within those photos that we shared that the calming rooms had a full glass front, so that teachers could passively supervise students that had opted into utilizing that space.
Okay. And then kind of speaking a little bit more broadly, these sound like exactly the types of changes that students need, but how can districts begin planning for these types of changes?
Again, getting consensus and buy-in from your community so that those changes are actually being implemented by the community, by the teaching community and the students, to help encourage and build a foundation for that change in culture is extremely important. But I would also say that investing in professional development and understanding some of the challenges that students are facing, not only within the school environment, but perhaps even the home environment, social media as well has become a huge space, I guess, that students occupy, right? Even though it is not a physical space, it is a space that socializing takes place. So understanding how all three of those environments really affect students' well-being and how teachers and staff and administration can support students' mental well-being through that knowledge of those environments.
And a lot of time the district's larger overall strategic plan will have the foundation for a lot of these topics that we're talking about. And so it sort of already sets the stage for what the district and the stakeholders have highlighted as important and what they want to focus on, specifically when it comes to students' well-being.
Okay. And then how would open and flexible spaces impact students with learning disabilities or ADHD? And is there any way to make sure that they have areas where they feel safe as well?
Yep, we had talked a little bit about those individual or more enclosed spaces being spaces where students who might feel overstimulated or can remove themselves or overwhelmed can remove themselves from that space voluntarily and have a little bit of agency and choice within the learning environment regarding where they are choosing to do their learning. So in a typical, perhaps traditional classroom where you have 25 desks and they're all the same desks, a student with ADHD or sensory issues would not have any choice in where they were doing their learning. By providing that variety of furniture, variety of spaces, and in kind of encouraging the culture of student agency. So teachers allowing students to take advantage of those spaces of their own accord, encourages and helps students with those conditions to have control over their environment.